going on, sports fans? It's your boy Brandon B coming at you with another episode of That Sports Podcast. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about some other projects that I got going on. I just dropped a new episode of my podcast yesterday. That Sports Podcast is this podcast. XYZ Talk Radio is my other podcast. I just dropped a new episode of that one yesterday. So go check it out. I'll drop the link in the comments because I did mention it. Also, if you could do me a favor and go check out my website, I have some sales going on. I have a content creator promotion going on. Enter the promo code CREATOR and you get $50 off the streaming and photography kits that I have available on my website for purchase. And I have another deal going on called what I call the gift of socks. 10% off socks that are listed on my website. I'll be looking into making some more deals and putting some more inventory up and doing a little bit more advertising for that because I do need money to support these podcasts and I really need the help, folks. So go over there and check it out. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video and the channel if you like these podcast episodes. Now that we've gotten business out of the way, let's get into this week's episode. All right, so jumping into this episode of the podcast, we're going to start with week 5. Wrapping up with that, Monday Night Football, we had the Packers versus the Raiders. The Raiders eked out a close win over the Packers. Looks like Green Bay could be struggling to find a groove this season. I don't want to say that they're, going to hit that kind of perennial slump, but they definitely need to get some things sorted out because it's not looking good over in Green Bay, especially as we've seen them historically be a relatively good team and compete for a playoff spot. So there's still a lot of football left to be played, but I don't know, Green Bay just looks like they're struggling. Moving on, we're gonna recap week 5. So the winners and losers of week 5, as I mentioned, Green Bay was a loser this week as they lost to the Raiders, and we will pick up with the Raiders winning. The Kansas City Chiefs won. San Francisco 49ers won. The Bears won. The Colts won. The Jags won. The Steelers won. The Saints won. The Falcons won. The Lions won. The Dolphins won. The Eagles won. The Bengals won. And the Jets won. The top players of the week were Sam Howell at quarterback. He had 37 completions, 388 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 sack. I'm looking clearly at the interceptions, and it says 1 interception. So why did my eyes jump to sack? I'm moving too fast, people. Maybe it's the coffee I've got in my system. Anyway, 1 interception, 5 sacks. Bryce Hall, running back, 22 carries, 177 yards, 8 yards average, 1 touchdown, 72 yards long. DJ Moore, wide receiver, 8 receptions, 230 yards, 28 yards average, 3 TDs, 58 yards long. And Terrell Bernard, linebacker, 7 solo tackles, 5 assists, 12 total. So your losers this week were the Commanders, the Giants, as usual, the Patriots, the Titans, the Ravens, the Panthers, the Texans, the Cardinals, the Broncos, the Rams, the Vikings, the Cowboys, the Packers, and the Bills. And your teams on the bye week this past week were the Seattle Seahawks, the Browns, the Buccaneers, and the Chargers. And that is your week 5 recap. All right, looking at the rest of the lineup for this week of football, the Sunday games include the Ravens taking on the Titans, the Panthers versus the Dolphins. So let's see. The first 2 games, I think I'm going to take the Ravens over the Titans, and I think I'm definitely taking the Dolphins over the Panthers. I like the Dolphins, and out of those 2 games, I think the Dolphins are. I'm more sure the Dolphins are going to win than I am the Ravens are going to win, but we'll see what happens. So next up, we have the Saints and the Texans. This game is a toss-up. I'm leaning more towards the Saints. Next, we have the Commanders and the Falcons. This is another tough one. The Falcons are kind of wishy-washy. The Commanders are kind of wishy-washy. Sam Howell is playing well despite the fact that he's been sacked a lot. I just don't know. But I think I'm going to lean with the Falcons on this one. I think with my gut, I'm just thinking, they're a little bit more solid of a team. Colts and the Jaguars. I'm going Jaguars. I don't have any real faith in the Colts. Sorry, Colts fans. Seahawks and Bengals. I think the Bengals are going to win that one. The Seahawks just aren't what they used to be. The Vikings and the Bears. The Vikings, I think, are taking this one. The Bears are the Bears. So, if it was the Vikings versus, the Eagles or the Bengals, I might lean towards the other way, but it's the Bears. Yep. So, I'm going with the Vikings. 49ers and Browns. I'm going with the Niners. The Niners are looking good this year, and the Browns are looking okay, and that's all I got to say about that one. Patriots and Raiders. Oof. The Patriots aren't looking that great, and neither are the Raiders. Who do we want to go with? Flip a coin. Heads. I'm going with the Patriots. I don't know. I can't go against I can't rightly say that a Belichick team is out against a team like the Raiders. You know what I mean? But we'll see. Next up, we have the Lions and the Buccaneers. I think the Lions are going to win that one. The Buccaneers are a decent team, but I think the Lions are just a better team. Cardinals and Rams. Oof. I think the Rams are going to win. Eagles and Jets. I think the Eagles are going to win. And the two teams on a bye this week are the Packers and the Steelers. For your Sunday night game, you have the Bills and the Giants. I'm going with the Bills. I have zero faith that the Giants are going to be able to pull off a win against a team like the Bills. And then on Monday night, we have the Cowboys versus the Chargers. I think I'm going with the Cowboys. I kind of want to lean towards the Chargers, but I feel like the Cowboys have something to prove. I feel like they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, especially after, the last couple games. They've, I believe they lost one game in the last couple weeks, and it wasn't a real, like they haven't been as dominant as people have predicted the Cowboys to be. So I think they have a chip on their shoulder, and I think they're really going to come out on Monday night and really, really put it to the Chargers. But something's telling me the Chargers may upset them. I don't know. We'll see. I might have to eat crow on my Cowboys pick. But that's the rest of your matchups for NFL Week 6. All right, so Week 6 kicked off on Thursday night with the Broncos versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs won. I'm a little concerned about the Chiefs. I think we're heading into the era of them being overhyped. I'm just not sold on them 100% this season. And I don't want to say that they're a bad team, but it looks like, Tyreek Hill leaving definitely did take something away from that offense. It doesn't seem like they're scoring as many points. It seems like they're getting off to a little bit slower of a start. Now, I know that the Chiefs kind of get slow starts to the season, but this seems a little bit slower than usual. Even though they are 4-1, they're still not, lighting up the scoreboard like they used to. They're just still not as exciting as they used to be. So I feel like they might need to get, some more big playmakers in there, because Tyreek Hill leaving, it definitely took away a lot from that offense. And I don't want to say the Chiefs are going to miss the playoffs, but if they do, we could really see this start to begin to be that era where we start seeing people say the Chiefs are overhyped. Something interesting in the sports world that I saw was a article about Tyreek Hill wanting to bring back a rule that the NFL did away with a couple years ago. It was being able to challenge a defensive pass interference call. I agree. I think they should bring it back, at least in critical moments of the game. And what I mean is like, if we wanted to say, like, let's say inside the last 5 minutes of the first half, right? Like inside the last 5 minutes of the second quarter, they should be allowed to challenge any sort of defensive pass interference calls that might seem a little hinky. And the reason I think that is because if there's those are moments where those plays are very critical. A team can be down going into halftime, and then a defensive pass interference call changes the whole momentum of the game. And people don't really understand how it can change it. Well, because it gets in your head psychologically. Oh, it was a bad call, blah, 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 blah. And some people can't shake it. Not all 11 players on either side of the ball, whoever's affected by it, is going to shake it, especially if that call results in a score and a team tying the game, or going up or going down. And you have to think about it too. If it's a defensive pass interference, the team's going down the field, they score, and then they get the ball back at half, that's 2 free possessions. You see what I'm saying? So it changes the dynamic of the game. So I do believe that they should bring it back. I don't think Tyreek Hill is, speaking out of pocket about it, because I do believe they should bring it back, because some of those calls, they do affect the outcome of the game. Let's talk about the last 5 minutes of any game. A team is up 3, a team is up by a field goal, and then now this team goes up because of a bad pass interference call. I do believe that they should bring it back. Now, I understand that it may not It may not happen or come up as often, but the option still should be there. It still should be an option to challenge those plays, especially when those plays result in scoring or a team being in a position to score and affect the game in such an outcome. You know what I mean? It's like if the play wasn't going to result in anything but a fourth down regardless, you know what I mean? I'm not really going to make bones about it. The receiver had no chance of catching the ball. Yeah, I'm not even going to worry about those types of plays. Or the receiver, got bumped 10 yards short of the sticks and stuff. Like, he wasn't even really going to make the catch and realistically make a first down. Those are situations that I'm talking about. So yeah, I do believe they should bring it back. Last football topic, and then I'm going to move on. Aaron Rodgers took a shot at Travis Kelce last week and called him Mr. Pfizer. And then this week or somewhere in between that, he challenged him to a debate about the COVID vaccine and how safe it is. And quite frankly, I just think it's all ignorant shit. I get that pro athletes have opinions on things, right? And I get that they're going to speak out on things. But for this man to go out on an active campaign to change the hearts and the minds of people is too much for me. Aaron Rodgers spent his entire life doing one thing: becoming proficient at throwing a ball really well. Now, I'm not knocking him for doing it because he's making a good living, he's got a great lifestyle, whatever. But at the same time, he did not practice medicine. And if he wanted to have a medical opinion, he should have gone to medical school, studied immunology, virology, and whatever else, so he could have those medical opinions. Because at this point, how he feels or what he thinks about the COVID vaccine is a moot point. The majority of the medical community is on board with the COVID vaccine. It is only a very small minority of medical professionals who are out there going and throwing their arms up and this, that, and the third. And it's the same folks who are out there talking about the whole COVID thing was a hoax and this, that, and the third, herd immunization and all this kind of crap. It's that same crowd. Now, this isn't me telling Aaron Rodgers to shut up and play football. All I'm saying is quit with the active campaigning. If somebody asks you about your stance on COVID, say what you need to say and leave it alone. Because your opinion about medicine is next to nothing to anybody. And if anybody is out there taking medical advice from Aaron Rodgers, I want you to stop going to your doctor and consult Aaron Rodgers whenever you feel a cold or something. I want you to go call Aaron Rodgers up and ask him what he should do about your broken leg. Because if you're putting that much stock in his opinion on medicine, then you don't need to go see a doctor no more. You need to see Aaron Rodgers. Moving right over to the NBA, the season kicks off on the 24th. But we got some news before then, stuff going on, preseason games, people getting in trouble. Hornets Miles Bridges turned himself in after an arrest warrant was issued. Apparently, he broke a protection order. He was accused of domestic violence, I guess beating his baby mama in front of their two children, and in exchange for no jail time, he's on some 10-year probation and got to submit to narcotics and alcohol testing. I mean, he's got to go through all of these different things to avoid jail, to avoid jail time, right? And I just don't understand what made him decide to do whatever it was that violated this whole his protection order. I want to know. He avoided serious trouble. Jail time, losing his spot in the NBA. I mean, he avoided a lot. And all he had to do was stick to the fucking rule. And I chalk it up to age. He's only 25. But this goes back to what Jabari Parker was talking about. You have all these young guys in the league. A lot of these guys, they're just graduating college. 21, 20, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old and stuff like that. You're talking about pretty much kids. And I don't want to say children, I mean young adults. Most of these guys, when they come out of college, they haven't paid a bill. They haven't been responsible for shit except themselves. Playing basketball, showing up to class on time, showing up to practice on time. There's a lot that they need to learn in between that. And this is the maturity that he was talking about. You have these guys doing this type of stuff because they are thrust into the limelight. They're given all this money, this power. And I mean, think about it. The NBA went out of their way to make sure that this kid didn't serve any jail. No, I'm not saying it's the NBA specifically. I just mean that there are team lawyers and stuff like that. There are lawyers that these teams work with and have these guys going with and stuff like that help them out of situations like this. It's because if he goes to jail, this team is now out of money. You know what I mean? They're losing. They bet a lot of money on this guy to come in here and make this team good. And they're not willing to jeopardize that over something as this which they deem as kind of small. You see what I'm saying? Which is why they only gave him a 10-game suspension and shit. Now, I'm not going to sit here and harp on what they suspended him for, how long the suspension should be. That's a whole different conversation. I'm just saying, I don't understand why risk it. You're making millions of dollars, you have a great career, a great life, and then you do something else stupid. Maybe the NBA needs to consider giving these guys some time in other leagues to develop like they do over in Europe, to gain some maturity. Because not all of these guys are equipped to handle the limelight and the spotlight just like this. This is one of those scenarios where I believe that, if this guy had been given an opportunity to work in a developmental league and, before thrust into the spotlight, maybe something like this wouldn't have happened. And if it did happen, it would have happened at a smaller club, a smaller location, and not for the world to see. Because what this is showing is that NBA players can get away with just about anything as long as they have the money to get out of it. They have the lawyers to negotiate. Speaking of people in trouble, Dylan Brooks hit with a $25,000 fine from the NBA for hitting an Indiana Pacers player right in the gonads. I watched the play, and I don't necessarily know how I feel about it one way or the other. I saw the replay multiple times. I played it back multiple times, and I like I said, I don't really necessarily know. I mean, I could see them making a case for it being an unusual move, because when he's running through him, he can clearly see that there's a defender in front of him getting ready to place a screen. And at no point does he make any adjustment to the left side of his body to slide around the screen. He just sort of squares up with him. So I can see why they might think it was intentional, because the way his body was, if he was really genuinely trying to navigate the screen, in my mind, the left side of his body would have tried to get out of the way of the screener instead of getting hung up on the screen. But I also can see where Dylan Brooks is like, look, I was just trying to get through the screen. He may not necessarily have been trying to hit him in the gonads, but he definitely ended up doing that. So do I believe that it was excessive? I don't know. I can't glean intent from it. Just the way it looked to me, it looked like it might be intentional, which is why I think they gave him the flagrant. The $25,000 fine is just to keep these players from doing that type of stuff. Be cognizant of what you're doing. I understand that accidents happen and things like that, but the whole reason they have the rules in place is to keep people safe. And there are consequences to breaking the rule, whether advertently or inadvertently, right? Even if it was an accident, he probably still would have got the foul. It's just like when a player is running down the court and he's getting ready to block a shot and he flies by the defender and accidentally hits him on the arm or something like that, and then they call it, are they going to be like, oh, that's crap, man, that was an accident? No, a foul is a foul is a foul. Whether it was intentional or an accident, you're still going to get called for it. And then when you do something like that, you're leaving it up to the refs to try and glean intent. It's not going to work. Moving over into the UFC last weekend, October 7th, we had UFC Fight Night, Dawson versus Green. And on the main card, the main event was Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. Grant Dawson 22-1 in his professional fight record. Bobby Green 31-14-1, no contest in his professional record. Bobby won by KO in the first round, 33 seconds. The co-main event was Joe Pyfer and Razak Al Hassan. Joe won by submission in the second round. Welterweight Alex Moreno versus Joaquin Buckley. Buckley won by decision. Drew Dober, Rick Glenn. Dober won first round. And we have Alexander Hernandez versus Bill Alagio. And looks like Bill won by a decision. So let's check the preliminary card. So we had the women's strawweight Carolina Kawal, I can't even pronounce her name, not even gonna try, versus Diana Belbita. Carolina won by decision. Flyweight, we had Nathan Manis versus Mateus, and Nathan won first round knockout. Women's strawweight, Vanessa Demopoulos versus Kanako Murata. Vanessa won by decision. Bantamweight, Aori versus Munoz. Aori won by decision. Women's flyweight, De La Rosa versus Aldrich. Round 3 decision. And there were several fights that got canceled. But those are the results from your fight last weekend. So it looks like we have some updates to UFC 294. Charles Oliveira is going to be out. And Paulo Costa is going to be out as well, so that's going to sub in Alexander Volkanovski. And it's going to sub in Kamaru Usman for those fights, the co-main event and the main event for UFC 294. I don't think the changes are going to take away from the fights. I still think they're going to be amazing fights, especially the Kamaru Usman fight. It'll be interesting to see what happens. He lost his belt. He's making his way back to the top. So let's see if he can get it back. He's getting a little bit older. The years are starting to take their toll on him. So we'll see. We shall see. UFC 294 is going to be a great event. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be October 24th in Abu Dhabi. All right, sports fans, that is my episode for this week. Don't forget to check me out next week. New episodes every Saturday. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Pop over to my website, help support. All the purchases go to help me creating these podcasts and funding this stuff. Like I said, I love doing this, but I got to make money somewhere. So I appreciate it if you could stop by. Follow me on my other socials. Catch me next time, guys. Peace.